Hello everyone, my name is Naila Pierre, and today we will be talking about the fast track and accelerated approval process. The question being asked today is speed versus safety. Let's start. The FDA has established many regulations to regulate what pharmaceutical drugs come to market. The traditional regulatory approval process may take on average 12 years to get a drug onto market, which may seem like an obstacle course for many. According to the FDA, in a measurement of success, only 30% of drugs make it to phase 1 of testing. As you get to phase 2, this number decreases to 14%. By the time you are at the new drug application portion, the percentage goes down to a mere 8%. Currently, the FDA has 4 distinct approaches to make such drugs available in a more rapid manner than traditionally: priority review, breakthrough therapy, accelerated approval, and fast track. Let's talk background history. In 1992, the United States Food and Drug Administration instituted the accelerated approval regulations. The purpose for establishing these regulations was with intent to improve the access to therapeutics that can treat life-threatening diseases. Thus, the FDA will only grant accelerated approval for therapeutics designed to treat life-threatening diseases that have currently no approved treatments in existence. Accelerated approval process shortens development time of drugs for serious medical illnesses. This is done by allowing drugs that fit the criteria to considerably shorten the time with the use of a surrogate endpoint, which is required prior to receiving FDA approval. However, data from surrogate endpoints must be reasonably able to predict some type of clinical benefit, contrary to traditional approval process, which requires that clinical benefit be shown before approval can be granted. In 1997, Section 112 of the FDAMA Act included the expediting study and approval of fast-track drugs. Fast-track drugs is a designation, and to be eligible for fast-track approval, an application must be submitted in which a request with supporting documentation for designation is required, and its intended use of the product is also required. The fast-track approval also puts an emphasis on early communication with the FDA. The distinction between fast track and accelerated approval is that fast track is designed to expedite the review of drugs that treat serious conditions and fill an unmet medical need, while accelerated approval is designed to treat life-threatening diseases that have currently little to no approved treatments in existence. Well, there must be some regulatory challenges. Let's talk about them. At the time the FDA reviews a new drug application, all potential problems with a drug may not be clear at the given time. That is the first challenge, which is why the FDA has a post-marketing surveillance program. The FDA continues to track approved drugs for adverse events through this program. However, companies have a poor reputation of following up. After making post-marketing commitments, many companies fail on following through with said commitments. As you will hear in one of the case studies, some companies fail also to demonstrate a drug's effectiveness after reaching market, which is usually a result in their drug being pulled off shelves or change in labeling. However, this may take a couple of years to notice. Issues with manufacturing can also be a regulatory challenge. This may happen if manufacturing of the drug is not in accordance with the FDA manufacturing guideline, which may delay or lead to denials. Any manufacturing flaws will need to be corrected before approval, which may lead to said delays or denials. Let's talk about some of the case studies. Let's go first to Gleevec. Gleevec is an oral treatment for patients with a life-threatening rare form of leukemia. The drug was approved under the FDA's Orphan Drug Program, which gives financial incentives. It also received accelerated approval and was approved after 3 large phase 2 clinical trials. The drug acts differently than other cancer drugs before it, specifically because it targets an enzyme that allows the rare form of leukemia cell to grow. Moving on to Prozesta. In 2006, the FDA approved under the fast track approval process. This drug is intended for treatment of HIV. A noteworthy fact about this drug is that it is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines, which is a list of the most effective and safe medicines needed in the health system according to WHO. Moving on to Avastin. In 2004, the FDA approved Avastin for colon cancer treatment under fast track approval process. It can treat a variety of different cancers, including colon cancer, and at one point the label included breast cancer. In 2008, it was approved for breast cancer under the FDA's accelerated approval process. In 2010, FDA revoked the breast cancer indication because follow-up studies on the drug failed to prove the drug's effectiveness for treating breast cancer. 2 follow-up studies had been undergone with a population size of 2,000 women, and the findings only showed a small benefit compared to all the serious health risks recorded in all the studies. Many people protested, including the maker of Avastin. However, after the loss of an appeal, the drug could only be used to treat breast cancer off-label. Okay, moving on, let's talk about some of the controversy. The regulatory approval process is often criticized due to slowness. Many fear the time it takes to bring a drug to market is too long, which can lead to unnecessary casualties. Critics pro-expedited approval often argue that pharmaceutical drugs are approved too slowly by a process that is costly and time-consuming, which they believe has fatal effects for individuals in need of life-saving options. On the opposing end, there is criticism due to the speediness of some approval processes, with the fear that safety is compromised while doing so, which brings up ethical issues. What is my position on the matter? Well, without a question, the use of accelerated and fast-track approval would be for the greater good and would benefit many patients who have rare diseases that do not currently have treatment options. Based on the research I have conducted, I believe the benefits of accelerated approval and fast-track approval outweigh the risk. Nothing is foolproof. Every pharmaceutical drug has the potential to become a bad drug. We should not limit a life-saving drug from reaching its intended users earlier because of a maybe. The world is filled with maybes. There is uncertainty in everything. Creating an expedited process to new therapeutic drugs that meet the criteria is essential for those who need treatment options available and have none currently. In conclusion, what does the future hold? Well, I believe more FDA regulations. President Barack Obama signed the 21st Century Cures Act on December 13, 2016, which I speculate was a step toward a new market for innovation. However, with our current President Trump taking office, I speculate the FDA will increase regulations. On January 30th, President Trump signed an executive order, and in this order, I feel as though will hinder the implementation of the 21st Century Cures Act. I also speculate the FDA will become stricter with post-market surveillance. Another thing I expect is an increase in approval of drugs dealing with rare diseases. I speculate this because of many of the incentives, including time and money saved by companies. So many companies will be seeking out expedited approval processes, which should overall increase the amount of approval of drugs dealing with rare diseases. Well, thank you for your time. This is my bibliography.